So if you're building anything with large language models, you've definitely heard of LangChain. It's everywhere. But now there's a new name popping up, LangGraph. What's the deal here? Is one replacing the other? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. What they are, how they're different, and most importantly, when you should use each one.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. A raw large language model, like GPT-4 from OpenAI, is incredibly powerful, but it's not an application by itself. Think of it like a car engine. It's got all this horsepower, but you can't drive it anywhere. To actually build a car, something useful, you need to connect that engine to wheels, a steering wheel, and a logical system. You need a framework.
And for a good while now, the go-to framework for this has been LangChain. You can really think of it as the original, essential toolkit for giving your LLM a job to do and a structure to follow. At its heart, LangChain is all about, well, chaining things together. It lets you take an LLM, connect it to a specific prompt template you've created, feed it some data, and then clean up the output. It's basically the glue that holds your entire LLM-powered app together.
A great way to picture this is to think of it like following a recipe. A recipe has a fixed set of steps you follow in a very specific order, right? First you add flour, then you add eggs, then you mix. You don't circle back and add more flour after you've mixed everything, or decide to skip a step based on how the dough looks. It's a straight, linear process.
And this is exactly what that recipe looks like in action. A user gives some input, which gets slotted into a prompt template. That nice, formatted prompt gets sent to the LLM, and then the LLM's raw response is parsed into something clean and useful. It's a super clear, predictable sequence, which, by the way, is incredibly powerful for a huge number of tasks.
And man, this toolkit is loaded with some powerful components. You've got agents, which are like smart dispatchers, figuring out which tool, like a search engine or a calculator, is needed to get the job done. There's memory, so your app can actually remember what you talked about earlier, and retrievers, which help it go out and fetch specific documents or data. It's really like a complete workshop for building your app.
But what happens when the task isn't just a straight line? What happens when your application needs to think a little more, well, creatively? This is exactly where we start to hit the limits of that purely linear approach.
Because let's be real, complex problems rarely follow a simple recipe. The real world is full of feedback loops, unexpected results, and situations where you have to try something, see if it works, and maybe take a totally different path based on what you find out.
So here's the crucial question. What if your app needs to try a tool, check if it worked, and if not, try a different one? Or what if it needs to loop through a process, refining an answer over and over until it's just right? A simple linear chain just isn't built to handle that kind of cyclical back-and-forth logic.
And that is precisely the problem LangGraph was built to solve. If LangChain is the toolkit on the workbench, LangGraph is the sophisticated control tower that directs all the complex operations.
Now, the most important thing to get here is that LangGraph is not a replacement for LangChain. It's actually an extension that's built right on top of it. It takes all those powerful components from LangChain and lets you arrange them not in a straight line, but in a graph. And that allows for much, much more complex and robust ways of controlling the flow.
So let's go back to our analogy. If LangChain is a recipe, LangGraph is a flowchart. And what do flowcharts have? They have branches. If this happens, go here. Otherwise, go over there. They can have loops that send you all the way back to an earlier step. It's a dynamic map for navigating a problem, not just a static list of instructions.
So how does it actually pull this off? Well, instead of that straight line, you build your workflow as a graph with nodes that are steps and edges connecting them. This is what lets you create all those branches and loops. It also maintains a global state, which is kind of like a shared memory or a central scratchpad. So every step knows what the other steps have already done. You can even have multiple AI agents working together and create checkpoints to save your progress on really long tasks.
Okay, so now that we get the difference, the big question becomes, when do you reach for the recipe and when do you really need the flowchart? Let's break it down.
This chart really makes the choice pretty clear. LangChain's linear structure, it's perfect for straightforward tasks like a simple Q&A bot or a document summarizer. LangGraph's nonlinear graph structure, it's built for the heavy-duty jobs, like getting a team of specialized AI agents to work together on a problem. The bottom line is simple. Start with LangChain for simpler apps and prototypes, and then bring in LangGraph when you need that complex, multi-step reasoning.
So, look, if you remember just one thing from all this, let it be this. LangChain is the foundational toolkit. It gives you all the essential pieces you need to build.
LangGraph is the control layer you add on top when your app's logic gets too complicated for a simple straight chain. It's not about one versus the other. It's about using the right tool for the complexity of the job.
So now that you understand the difference between the toolkit and the control tower, the really exciting part can begin. The focus shifts from just how these tools work to what you can actually go out and create with them.
Whether it's a simple, elegant chain or a complex, looping graph, the power to build these sophisticated reasoning applications is more accessible than it has ever been. So the only question left is, what complex problems are you going to go solve?